Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 4 of VBS's 14 rankings. What a week! It was a double eviction. That's what we tried to say at the end of the last rankings. Still not quite sure what actually ended up making the final cut, but either way, it was a double this week. Two people went home. We lost Connor and Caden. I believe neither of whom were our official predictions last week for who would be leaving. But had we talked about the double, I think Caden would have been a prime suspect, and
Ah, that's funny.
it was a prime. I thought about it. No, not really. And I'm not shocked that he's gone here. Connor is upsetting to lose. Saw some interesting gameplay from a lot of people. A
What's
lot of things stayed the
gameplay?
same this week, but it'll be very interesting moving forward into next week's rankings where the state of the house is, because I think next week in week 5 is when, at least for me, I anticipate a lot of scores fluctuating. But for me, I think a lot of these scores are going to stay pretty similar, or go down.
Cool.
Any
Let's get
thoughts,
into
Steve?
it. No, let's get into it. Alex.
Hold on, we gotta look at the graph.
Oh, this graph? Okay.
Yeah, my favorite thing. Alex was in number 1 spot. She moves up to the number 1 spot, beating out Jason, who was number 1 previously. Luke and Joe also on the rise. Down at the bottom, of course, was Chloe, and then Kayla and Caden. Okay, that's all I had to say.
Cool.
Cool. Starting off this week with Alex. Alex, we're a little bit into the next week, so I really have to separate in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
We have our scores locked in for week 4. So
Mm-hmm.
for Alex in week 4, um, the things that I saw were that she still had control of the game, which was good. She was still in a very good spot. Um, but I think with for the first time, Joe being a final nominee on the block, people did take notice that she was actively gunning to save him. And people did start to notice discrepancies in her stories between alliances. And in addition to both those things, I think Caden going wasn't the best thing that could have happened for her. I understand that she wanted him out, but I don't necessarily that means it was a good move. It just means it was like a move that she wanted to have happen. So for week 4, I still feel pretty good about Alex. I am going to be lowering my score, but not drastically. I'm going to be giving Alex, I'm going to be back down at my 7 for week 4. Um, I will be very intrigued where we go next week. If the week continues to pan out how it looks like it is right now, I do not anticipate being this high on Alex for much longer, and I think other people will be taking the top spots. So Alex, enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah. Um, this eviction the first one, teeter-tottered a lot. And I think Alex was a bit hasty in her campaigning for Joe to stay because she didn't have a lot of time. She was on a trip and she had to kind of throw things at the wall and just hope they'd stick because she didn't have a lot of time, which is understandable. But because of that, I agree. I think people are starting to take notice of her relationships in the house. People are starting to confirm with other people. People are starting to be suspicious. Um, her score could have been a lot lower, would have been a lot lower if Joe went home. Um, but Joe's here still. Everyone she really cared about survived the double eviction. So at the end of the double eviction, I'm at a 7 also for Alex.
Very nice. That means Alex's score is an average of 7 for the double eviction, which means Alex's score does move down this week, but still a very high score for this stage of the game. We'll
Yeah,
see where it continues to go, though.
yeah. Caden.
Hayden.
Yeah. Let's talk about.
I just think that everything Caden did caught up with him in a not great way. And I don't necessarily say that as in Caden's been messy. I actually don't think Caden has been that messy. Caden's just, I think, a talker So like the people that he does talk to, he talks to a lot, and he just didn't know that like Alex wasn't to be trusted and that there were leaks here and there. So in terms of his gameplay, he wasn't that messy, but things that he was saying a little loosely got back to other people and really did catch up with him this week. Um, I think him not clearly pushing for Joe to go home is what really bit him, because if Joe had gone home on his HOH, he would have had a great move on his resume that was like one of, for the first time, like a really correct move that someone was trying to make.
Yeah.
B, you separate Alex from Joe, and C, he would have safety going to the double, and he would still be here. And he very much was like, he made it known that he wanted Joe out, but he was like, but listen, I'm not voting. It's up to y'all. I was like, no, I feel like he could have done a clearer job at outlining, like, do you not see that he needs to go? So that's a little unfortunate. Unfortunately, I just think he was in such a low position for a while. I was at the 3 for him last week. I am going to be lowering my score, and I am unfortunately going to give him the 1 just because I just feel like he dropped the ball and could have done more. And in order for you to not get the 1, I feel like it needed to at least be a little not in your control. He kind of gave up in the double 2. As soon as he like saw his name in the 6, he was like, well, I'm done. Bye. And it's like, there was a chance. So unfortunately, it's going to be a 1 for Caden for me, but really enjoyed having him on the season. He brought a lot to the game. And that's kind of my closing thoughts.
Yeah. To his credit, I think he did put up a little bit of a fight for Joe to go within his group.
Yeah.
But once he saw like Fletcher was leading the other way,
Oh my God.
which we'll get to that. Once he saw like, like Alex not wanting to do it, obviously, he kind of pulled back a little bit. But he was pretty gung ho going in the beginning. He was like, "I want Joe to go. This is my HOH weekend." It just didn't end up happening. If he broke if there was a tie that he was breaking, he would have voted for Joe. But I think he needed to do a little bit more. So that's his credit with that. Also, like great HOH win this week too. So like credit for that. I'm gonna give him a 2 this week. Sad to see him go, but that is the end of the line. Well, Caden.
Alrighty, Caden, thank you so much for playing this season. Hope to see you around.
Next. Caroline.
Moving on.
Caro Legend.
Caroline is Caroline. No, I'm feeling very, no, I was about to say very good. I'm feeling very much better about Caroline than I did the week prior. Caroline's been like really rocking back and forth, where I think she's, I think, a prime example of someone that suffers from going on the block week 1, and then you kind of become this idea of like someone that can just go up on the block again. So she was on the block week 1, she won HOH week 2, but then was then back on the block in week 3 as the target, and she stayed. And I think for her, the biggest thing that really needed to happen this week was for her to like not even be in the conversation. Um, of noms and not be the target and solidify more allies. And I think she did all of those things. Kaden won HOH and she was safe for the week. In the invisible HOH week, Jason, because of what Connor did on the way out, really had no reason to target Caroline and has been working with Caroline. Caroline's, I think, solidified Jason and Emily, obviously, really solidified Fletcher again, now that after Fletcher dropped the ball with her. I don't know. I don't hate her chances. I think she's riding okay in the middle. She's someone that I think could have pushed harder for Joe to go. But also Joe weirdly isn't targeting her after all this. And Connor like low key was question mark because she did put them both up. So I'm not mad at her game this week. I'm gonna raise my score up to a 5. Not mad at Caroline's game at all. Still a ways to go in terms of like me giving her a green score, but I'm not mad at it this week.
Me too. I'm going up to a 5 as well. Caroline, it's very clear to see that she has a brain and That is not something that can be said about everybody here.
In fact, I'd say no. Actually, I was about to say most of them. Starting in week 5, we'll get to it. In week 5, brains are turning on. Week
These
4,
are,
certainly not.
and it's
Certainly
clear to
not.
see that like when Caroline wants something to happen, I mean, this week showed that like she's okay with going against the grain to try and get votes for something that she wants to have happen. Ultimately, it didn't work this week. She flipped back the other way. But she was really, really pushing for Joe to go home, which is like the right move for her. So it didn't end up working out, but it shows that she has people that she can talk to try and sway, and she's willing to not just go with the house, which is great, and I love that. So I'm really, really, really excited that Caroline is on the jury and that we get to see more of her. I'm hoping that she goes really far. I don't want to jinx her, but
I think she could. I think especially looking at how week 5 is starting to shape up, I think she's going to float into the middle into a very key position. So we'll see.
so, so I'm hoping for some green scores for her coming up. Again, not enough yet, just because she's still kind of on the come up of coming off of that block streak. Um, but 5 for Caroline. Awesome. Honor.
Oh, Connor robbed. Unfortunately, we did like see this coming.
Yeah.
We've said this for now, except for week 1. This is like the 3rd week in a row that unfortunately we're saying this, that he's great at talking game when he talks game. He just didn't do it with enough people. And it really just power did not bounce into the right hands at all. He was on the block once due to a split decision that Caroline needed to make. It was easy to throw him up again because he didn't have that great of a relationship with that side of the house that did end up winning when Fletcher was HOH. And then Caden HOH. I was like, wait, I'm behind a week. So yeah, that all caught up with him. I will say, I thought he put up a good campaign for the most part. He like did talk to people. He asked people to keep him, wanted to stay in the game, and people were very receptive to it. They did want Joe out. It just had to do with the people who wanted to keep Joe. I think were more firm on that, and the people that wanted to keep Connor couldn't either a solidify enough or b wanted to keep Joe slightly more, which I think just came to bite him. But before I give my score, though, I have to say his exit did not disappoint.
No, it did.
Truthfully, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong. Normally, when people leave, if they like say a speech on the way out the door, I think usually people are like, okay, thank you, goodbye. His speech not only seriously impacted the double, but is seriously impacting how the game is moving forward here. So come on, Impact.
Yeah.
I think solidifying himself in the top 10 moments of the season for sure.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And very like, if he had to go out this early, I'm glad that he really left a mark on his way out.
Hmm.
Period. I'm going to lower my score. I'm going to give him a 2 because I thought he put up a good fight and he was good at talking game, but things were not able to come together for him this week. So it's going to be a 2 from me.
Yeah, I'm going for a 2 as well. Um, really, really sad. I really, really like. If there was one thing about Connor, it was that he was just so like appreciative and like grateful to like be playing, and I love that. I like just like love talking to him, which is awesome. Um, so I'm really happy he got to play. Sad he was home, but again, like honestly, could have swayed the vote a little bit if he didn't really. He kind of gave up in the last few hours, which like he definitely shouldn't have. The vote was definitely very live, but he didn't really talk that much. Neither he nor Joe talked at all, pretty much. So, um, upsetting, but not unexpected. So 2 for Connor. So sad. Wait, what happened? There we Okay. Ooh. Okay. Emily.
Um, she's someone who needs to turn on her brain. She does just a little bit. I was so feeling good about her, especially in the early game where she had all these different alliances and she knew how to set her priorities. But then she let that get away from her. And now I think her like judgment is being super clouded. And I just don't know where she is right now. The answer is La La Land. Um, it's just the game just seems to be like running away from her, and I don't think she realizes it. Um, but yeah, so I certainly am not raising my score. For this week with Cadence HOH and then the Invisible HOH, she still was fine. But whereas like if last week I was at a 5 and it was like a 5 just below a 6 because you're starting to slip out of that. This is now like a 5 just above a 4 because I see it going in a not great direction. So I am going to stay at my 5 for Emily, but this time it is unfortunately a hesitant 5. And I, granted, knowing a little bit of what's to come next week, don't see it staying at a 5. And I do unfortunately think that Emily will be in the red starting next week. But hey, we'll see. We'll see. But for me, I have locked in a 5 for Emily for week 4.
Yeah. Emily, what what are you doing?
See, for me, normally I'm like very on top of everything that happens in the game, but during the double and the evictions and all that stuff, I wasn't because I was making comps and whatnot. And correct me if I'm wrong. I remember Emily being very active in the decision making of both votes, and if
Of both Caden and
on
Connor?
specifically the Connor and Joe vote, but then also in this double. Do you like what was she doing if you remember? Because I
I
remember
was really confused because she was actively I think she was split, but she was telling two different things to two different groups. I think she was pushing for Joe to stay in like the Fletcher Caden group. That was she wasn't pushing, she was kind of just like, I think it's better if Joe stays. Then she was pushing for Joe to go in her other individual chats, like with Jackson and like just really confusing. I feel like she needed to kind of make up her mind and go that direction. But now she's been caught kind of saying things to both people about two different things, which is a little confusing.
I'm just not seeing any active agency from her.
Yeah.
It feels like
Like she had
wishy-washy.
she was the decision maker in this vote pretty much, and she didn't make a decision. She had other people make a decision for her.
And then I think ended up making the wrong. I think Joe going would have been.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like she had the power to have Joe go home. It was gonna be they easily would have been able to get 5 votes easily. Um, but I don't know what she's doing. I'm gonna go for a 4 on this week for Emily.
Yeah, that's not unfair. I'm sticking with what I locked in, but like hearing all of this, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. So Emily, we need to be doing something. Okay. Faven.
Haven. Okay. Last week I was like, I don't know whether to be at a 4 or a 5 for Faven, and I landed on a 5. And ultimately, I think that was the right decision, and I am happy with it. Faven this week, I think, and this is what's great about Big Brother. In my opinion, we like the best example of this that I can give, at least from our franchise, is in season 11 when EJ saved Eric with the veto. EJ initially was hesitant to it because he was like, if I do this, I'm going to be a target for the whole house and everyone's going to hate me and I'm going to be out next. But making a move to save an ally, I think, is more beneficial than worrying about what the house is going to think.
Yeah.
Because in a game like Big Brother, it's so easy for an ally to win HOH and you're safe, or for a new target to emerge. Like it's hard to target people. It's not like Survivor, you can just like get a group together and go, boom, you're done.
Yeah.
Do I think her move in week 2 could have been handled with more grace and finesse? Absolutely. And do I think that she'd be in a much better spot if she did that? For sure. But I think we are now seeing the exact thing of so much in the game has happened since that move that no one is talking about, wow, Faven can't be trusted because of XYZ. We're now talking about this Three Musketeers group. We're now talking about Alex and Joe possibly being a little closer. We're now talking about who needs to stay. Is there like, and like Faven's name as a target is not coming up as much. She is not in great with a bunch of people again still, but I do think that is to come. Um, so I'm not mad at my 5 last week. And again, on the opposite of Emily, where if last week my 5 for Faven was like, this could be a 4. This week it's a 5, and I'm like, okay, and I'm ready to move up to a 6 again because Faven, I think, is starting to come back around.
Yeah,
Not a 5 for Faven again, but it is a positive 5 this week.
I agree. Faven, the only thing I'll say about Faven is that she was caught in a really tough spot with the vote this week, I think. Choosing between Joe and like her really other close one-on-one ally with Connor. Um, I don't know if it was her place to actively make the decision this week. I think her stepping back and not making the decision was actually the best decision she could have made.
Mhm.
Because the vote was gonna go either way, regardless. The only real trouble she would have gotten it if it ended up actually being close, and people were split. Um, but I think she made the right decision in stepping back because she benefits from both people staying in the game. So I'm gonna I was at the 5 last week.
No, I was at the 5, you're at the 4.
I'm gonna go up to a 5. Okay, Faven. Oh,
I'm excited for Faven. Faven's someone that I think is going to give, like right now, maybe not in the best position, but like looking down the line, I think will be towards the end of the game.
mm-hmm. Fletcher.
I think Fletcher will go home next week. On the flip side of things. Oh my god.
So
Boy.
Fletcher indirectly, Fletcher made a terrible move, but indirectly
Hold
saved
on. Don't give him
herself.
credit yet. I'll give him credit at the end of my thing. Let's talk about how dumb this was first. 0% of this was smart. 0%. Joe was actively telling Alex last week, oh yeah, if I win HOH, I'll go back to Fletcher. And here Fletcher is being like, I think Joe is actually a trustworthy ally for me. Connor, he's doing things. He's a big, like, he's doing, and I'm like, what is happening? Um, Joe going home would have been, in the grand scheme of the game, we'll talk about the itty bitty nitpicky what happened. In the grand scheme of what was likely to happen, Joe going home would have been an amazing move. It would have been the right move because Joe isn't with him. Joe is the person that's getting all the information leaked to him by Alex, who Fletcher blindly trusts at this point. Um, I don't know, he just thinks he's in such a better position than he is. And that is not a good place to be because it's better to be on the bottom and know you're on the bottom than think you're playing from the top and not be. So this wasn't good. On top of that, let's talk about this for a fact. He was nominated during the double and was safe because of the hit list, which indirectly helped him a lot. We'll get to that in a sec. But thus, he lost his closest ally in Caden, which I think is only going to be, which like losing your closest ally, not great. Um, all that to say, for this week, my score for all of those reasons, I am lowering it to a 3. Um, just because this wasn't good on paper of the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I'm at a 3 for Fletcher too.
Um,
This was not correct, but it's still here because of it.
so yeah, so now let's talk about this because I'm not sure how easily the episodes are gonna be able to show this, but essentially, if Fletcher made the right move in the grand scheme of the game and voted out Joe, Hayden is the person that would have gotten safety during the Fright Night double eviction. Jason still wins HOH concretely. He tries to nominate Fletcher and Caden. Caden is safe. Luke goes up next to Fletcher. In theory, maybe Fletcher wins the veto, sure. But realistically, let's say that Jason wins the veto again, doesn't use it. boom, Fletcher's out of the game and not Caden. So his incorrect move ended up saving him, but that doesn't mean that it was a good gameplay. It just means that it worked out. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm at my 3. But crazy that it did work out the way that it did.
Awesome. Isabel.
Isabel. I did this last week. I just said her name and then I sat here in silence because there are 0 thoughts I have on this girl in the game. Firstly, love her. She does show up to all the comps. She does vote. Love her for that. Because there are people that have done equal to Isabel in the game, but then like don't do those things. So I appreciate her like being around and like being involved in the game. You know what? Like she's involved in the game. But is she involved in the game? No. People think she is, but she like doesn't respond to anyone enough to really get involved. And people are where it's Isabel, like comparing Isabel and Kayla, because we'll talk about Kayla a little bit later, but it's like whereas Kayla is like, I know I don't talk to anyone, but I want to. Please give me something. Everyone's like, totally, hear you, Kayla. What if we gave it all to Isabel, but then she doesn't respond or want any of it? And it's like, Isabel, just respond and start talking about the game. Just start talking about the game.
Mhm.
Start being, yes, I'll be in your alliance that people are trying to get you in. Not great. Um, I'm gonna stay at my 4 for Isabel, just because it's like I think her position might be a little better than a 4, but it's only because people keep throwing out the idea that she would be someone that's good to work with that isn't necessarily in with the other side, and therefore we shouldn't target her. But just like not being targeted is not at this point, heading into the jury phase of the game, a good enough reason for me to be any higher than a 4.
Yeah, I'm at a 4 too, but I also don't have much else to say. But I do love her. But 4. Awesome. Jackson.
Jackson. Um, big fan. Big
Yeah.
fan. Big fan of Jackson. Because I love brains and I love people with brains and I love people with working brains. And Jackson is all 3 of those things. It's great. Just looking at the information presented in front of you and knowing what it means. So key. So key. Because it's obvious. It's
Mhm.
obvious. And Jackson gets it. I do wish Jackson is a little more active in his like use of that information. But with all that being said, I do think that like, and I think he realizes this a little bit because he wasn't involved in a power structure week 1. There are things going on, and I think he is a little bit scared of like, great, this is information that I know now, and I'm pretty sure I know it. But if you tell, especially in this house, one singular wrong person, you're done. You're done. That's what happened to Caden. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that Caden had good reads because he did not, but I think that's why Jackson is being a little more hesitant with information, and he is slowly starting to trickle it out and get people's thoughts on it, which I think is a great way to do it. Instead of just like saying things concretely, he's like, "Yeah, I've noticed this. What are your thoughts on this observation that I've made?" Like, you know what I mean? So like that's all good and great. Um, and I think he's starting to slowly ingratiate himself more. Hopefully, the house shakes up that he's able to make a move in somewhere. For me, right now, I am still at my 5, but it is a solid confident 5. I'm just going to need him to pick up a few more allies to move up to a 6. But I'm at a strong, confident 5.
Yeah, I'm going up to a 6. I think that Jackson, like Caroline, but even ahead of Caroline, Jackson has proven that if he wants something that the house doesn't want, he is not afraid to go and change the culture, change the go talk to people. And I think that he talked to enough people during this eviction that he could have swayed the vote if it was up if people he was talking to were fully on board, I think he definitely could have swayed the vote with the direction of Joe going home. So I think that um that along with just all everything he sees and he's like, this doesn't make sense, or like, what are they talking about, or like, I know what's going on. Like he says things in his diary room that just like shows that he knows what's happening and what people are saying and what he knows is and is not true. Um, so I'm going up to a 6. And I think that we could see him going up a little more as we go through the weeks here. So awesome.
Very nice.
Jason.
Jason. But like I will stay being the biggest Jason fan. I love, love, love Jason. This week was a little bit troubling for him just because of the fact that A, he landed on the block, which is like never a great place to be. He was nominated. Um, and two, then like won the invisible HOH, made a move against people that granted a lot of people wanted out, but also a lot of people did not. And then it became like very public. So I think that leaving the double was in a very precarious position that like the in the timing of the game, the target on his back right after the double could be big enough to be detrimental if something else didn't happen. For that reason, I am lowering my score only to a 5 because he won the veto. He's still in good with people, but people are starting to see him as a threat. And I think that target was large on him. I'm now not worried for him in week 5 because we know a little bit as to what's happening. But for me, my score was locked at a 5, but that's what I'm at. I'm at a 5 for Jason in week 4. But I am excited still for him in this game because I do think he's got some longevity left.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a different path actually. I think again, I don't like actively watch a lot like for hours on end like a lot of the things that go on in the house. But I had the opportunity to this week, which was really fun. Um Jason is the reason Joe is still here. Absolutely 100%. Alex was very sloppy. Again, we talked about why, but in her efforts to keep Joe, Jason made it very Jason did a very good job at making everyone else think that they came up with the decision to keep Joe. In all of his one-on-ones with everyone, it's him gently swaying them to realize that Joe should stay when like all along he was going to convince them to vote Joe to keep Joe no matter what. Then he goes on. I have a little bit of a different take on this double eviction. He goes on to win the HOH and the veto secretly. Gets out Caden, who is someone that the house wanted out, and then decides not to lie about it. He decides to end the speculation and come out clean in the house chat and say it was him. Which the options were down to 6 of who the HOH could be, and after Caden and Luca are eliminated from that, it's there's only 4 people who it could have been who were the HOH. So he I think he made the right choice in taking responsibility for the HOH, and it wasn't like a dirty move either. It was something that the house was expecting. Caden was expecting it. So I think that was good play to take credit for it. It would have been interesting for him to use this secret HOH in a way to kind of turn the tides of the house, but I don't think we're ready for that yet, at least coming from him. So I'm actually going up for a 7 on Jason.
Wow, very nice.
So Jason stays at 6. Awesome. Joe.
What a complicated case to talk about. Joe, wow. What a pre-jury he's had.
Yeah.
Been through it and has survived it because of his allies. it's like simultaneously like he's ingratiated himself good with allies, but also is fighting tooth and nail and having his allies fight tooth and nail for him every single week
Mhm.
to save him. And I think at a certain point, like this Connor vote was the closest case where like if Faven and Jason wanted, they would both have great relationships with Connor. If they wanted to, they easily could have been like, we'd rather Connor here than Joe, and then Joe would be done. You know what I mean? So like his game, in my opinion, is just like in the life of everyone else right now. Um, in addition, I think he's been met like I think he's landed in this spot because of his own actions. It's not because of anything that isn't his own actions. Um, so it's like while I'm a big fan of Joe, and I think his social game is great, with peace and love to everyone else, I think he's dealing with a people that he knows from BB Snap or knows of from BB Snap and is able to work a relationship with that way, or B, talking to, again, with peace and love, dumb players that are easily fooled by like, they just think everything's the truth. So I think now that there is starting to be smart players like Jackson, like other people that we'll talk about next, that are starting to be like, what? He could be in a bit of trouble. Because he was on the block again and barely survived, or not barely, but like could have easily not survived.
Yeah. No, but I'd say barely.
I was at a 5 last week. I'm going to be lowering my score to a 4 because definitely a red score. He's definitely not in a great position, but he does like the people that have been fighting to save him have been able to every time. So how much danger is he actually in?
Exactly. That's what's really, really tricky. Because
It's so hard.
you said he's a very complex player. You said his game is in the life of everyone else's hands, but that is true. But he's the people who are holding his life like he's built such a good relationship with.
He's doing great at making them feel like they're his number one.
But he seriously almost went home this week. So I'm going from a 6 down to a 4 as well. Very complex player. Okay. Kayla.
Kayla. Okay. Like I said with
Kayla. Sorry.
whereas Isabel, everyone is like, yes, we want to work with Isabel. Isabel, do you want to work with us? And then Isabel is like, you know, and doesn't say anything. Kayla is like, please, 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 please work with me. Give me info. I'm here to play. And like, no one's been doing it. I think we are going to start to see a shift. And I think, call me crazy, whereas if you asked me in the pre-jury, I would have been like, no way is Kayla able to come back and like be a serious enough contender to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
No longer do I feel that way. Is it a long shot? Yeah. Yeah. Totally. 100%. Absolutely. Not even going to try and hide that fact. But I do think now that we're starting to see the game shift a bit and people need more allies, I think she's going to be in a very key middle position where it's like everyone knows that she's not claimed to a side. And thus, I think she's going to become a very key player. In terms of this week, she's talked to more people. More people have talked about liking her. And I think we are going to start to see those bonds be made moving forward. I was at a 3 last week. What do I have locked in?
Just say it.
No, I'm torn. I'm so torn. What are your thoughts? You go, you give your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that Kayla, I agree with you. I think that we're starting to see a little bit more of her come to life, but she's not having like an active role in the decision making process. But I
Right,
don't
yeah,
think that I don't think that necessarily means she's screwed for the rest of the game. I think that people, I think that she is gonna play a more pivotal role in the rest of the season than people might think, and I'm really excited for that. I went up to a 4 this week.
Okay. I think that's what I'm going to do as well. I won't lie. I was considering a 5,
Mm-hmm.
but
I think as we move into this next week, we'll see.
exactly. I think I'm thinking of a 5 as like where she could go, and I think a 4 is where she is. But
Yeah,
we got 3s last week. We're moving up to a 4, and I am excited by Kayla's prospects as to what could happen for her in this game.
man, do you know how discouraged I would be if someone gave me a 4 out of 10 and but they were like, no, I no, she's gonna get better. This ranking system is so funny.
It
Anyway,
is, yeah, crazy.
Luke, and by Luke, I mean Luke.
Listen, this wasn't his fault.
No, I mean it was his fault that he woke up like 20 minutes before the eviction. But
Well, I'm talking about Connor saying Three Musketeers came in
oh
front of
yeah,
him,
yeah.
and then he became a giant target because of it. Not his fault. Did it happen to him? Yes. Did it change his position? Yes. Would Connor still being here be better for him? Honestly, I don't know. I think Luke's in a very interesting place in this game. And for me, he's the person that I think I want to see win the game right now. If I had to pick one person that I want to see win the game, I think it would be Luke. Because I think he is just getting good information from everyone. Hi, yeah. Okay. Um, I think he is getting good info from people, and I think he is doing a good job at sitting on it and using it where he can. But obviously, this wasn't a great thing for him, especially leaving the double. So we were, I can't see right now. Let me super zoom. Yeah, we were both at 6s from last week. Because of what happened this week, I feel like I'd be crazy to not move my score down. So I am gonna give Luke back to a 5. But again, like I can't preface enough. I said going into this rankings, I feel like was a lot of like the status quo and people's positions then being brought down from the status quo. But moving into week 5, I think with everyone's positions literally on almost all sides of the house, I'd say nearly everyone moving into week 5 is having things revealed, changed, shaken up, or whatever. I think the playing field is being majorly leveled, and we're really going to see certain players be able to rise from the rubble and take control of the game. And I'm thinking and hoping that Luke is going to be one of those people. So I'm at a 5 because of what happened in week 4. But again, prospects are high moving forward. I'm excited.
Yeah, I have a 5 too for all the reasons you said. But I am excited for Luke to be moving forward. I think he also is going to have a key factor in moving forward in the game. But 5 for Luke this week. And as a little fun teaser update, someone did find the secret power of Vito.
Shut up. Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Shut up. And it's Jason! Different person. Shut up. I'm so glad we got this on camera.
Okay. Well, that's the end for now.
I'm shook. We're not going to give predictions on who we think goes home next week because we like do know a little bit as to what's going to happen. But in all honesty, if I were to make a prediction leaving the double, I would say Fletcher. So that is going to be my prediction, and we'll see what ends up happening. Steven, do you have any thoughts?
Leaving the double eviction, I also probably would have said Fletcher
I am so flabbergasted.
or Joe. I probably would
Flabbergasted.
have said Joe too, to be honest. But
Jason just found this. Oh my God. Yes, finally. Thank God.
so
Okay.
I wonder if he found it like using the clues. But anyway,
If he what?
if he found it using the clues,
I think he had to have because the memory wall isn't edit access. There's no way that he would.
when you go onto the memory wall, when things are loading, you can see it like pop up behind it.
Yeah,
but I don't think it matters.
we'll see. Anyway,
Okay.
see everyone next week. Wow,
See
I'm
you.
so excited for the next rankings.